Let's talk about the term impede. Well, impede means obstructing the passage of a vessel. Well, this word impede was added in Rule 8 and it was 8F1, 2 and 3 because the reference of impede is given in Rule 9, that is narrow channel, Rule 10, that is traffic separation scheme, and Rule 18, that is responsibility. So here, let's talk about term not to impede. Well, not to impede means taking such action while crossing so as to allow unobstructed passage of a vessel. And this action may be and may not be in line with other steering and sailing rule. Well, that I am going to discuss. So let's summarize. So this is the vessel impeded. The passage of which is not to be impeded. So this is the impeded vessel. And this is impeding vessel. That means this is the one which is going to impede the passage of vessel impeded. So the rule 8F1 says that the vessel which is required not to impede passage take early action. So 8F1 starts before the risk of collision. Then we are having 8F2 which says even after risk of collision exists, the vessel which is required not to impede passage is still obliged and usual steering and sailing rules will be applicable. Now 8F3, it is about impeded vessel and that is obliged to follow steering and sailing rule. Of course, these rules 8F1, 2 and 3 are applicable in any condition of visibility. So let's talk about 8F1, a vessel which by any of these rules is required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel shall, when required by the circumstances of the case, take early action. Take early action to allow sufficient sea room for the safe passage of other vessel. So the vessel which is required not to impede the passage should take early action so that there is a sufficient sea room for the safe passage of other vessel. Then we are having rule 8F2. So what if there is a risk of collision? Well, a vessel required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel is not relieved of this obligation if approaching the other vessel so as to involve a risk of collision. So first case is before the risk of collision, you are not supposed to impede. However, if you have impeded and there is a risk of collision, you are still obliged to follow the rules of this part. That means you are still obliged to follow steering and sailing rules. So here, let me just explain. Well, this is the typical example that this is a CBD and the CBD is following in a narrow channel. So rule 18D1 says that any vessel other than NUC and RAM shall avoid, and remember there is a recommendation, shall avoid impeding the safe passage of a CBD. That is rule 18D1. Alright, so it could be any vessel except NUC and RAM. So imagine, let us consider that this is a pardon vessel and pardon vessel should avoid impeding the passage of a CBD. Now 8F1, we know that this pardon vessel should take early action. So basically rule 8F1 adds additional responsibility on this gentleman, that is pardon vessel, and it should avoid impeding CBD even before risk of collision. However, you know the CBD will be having some signals like cylinder, right, or 3 red lights. So it may not be visible at a very long range. So it come closer and then realize that, man, this is a CBD. Then there is rule 8F2. So once the risk of collision develops, powered and vessel is obliged as per rule 17. Rule 17 is action by stand-on vessel, and basically it says do not alter course to port. So powered and vessel shall not alter course to port for a vessel on the port side. However, now let's come to this rule 8F3. 8F3 says no matter what, the CBD is still obliged. So CBD must take action if powered and vessel is not taking action after risk of collision exists. So as per rule 3H, that is the definition of a CBD, that a powered CBD is nothing but a powered vessel which is unable to deviate from the course she is following because of available depth and width of navigable water. So rule 8F3 is that the CBD is still obliged to comply with the steering and sailing rules. And in the steering and sailing rule, we have this rule 18D2. And now the 18D comes in the picture, which says the CBD shall navigate with particular caution. So first of all, CBD has to navigate with particular caution, having full regard to her special condition. Secondly, there is a rule 16, and which is action by giveaway vessel, and it recommends that a CBD should take early and substantial action, which means that CBD can either stop or slow down. So here in this situation, let me quickly summarize. So this was our gentleman powered and vessel, what it's supposed to do, and this is CBD, what she is supposed to do. So in case of powered and vessel, rule 18D1 is applicable, which says avoid impeding. Alright, then rule 8F, which says you should take early action. Then there is 8F2, which says even risk of collision exists, you are still obliged to follow steering and sailing rule. And rule 17, that is the action by stand-on vessel. In this case, the powered vessel is a stand-on vessel and you need to take action. Now, let's come to the CBD. CBD, first of all, as per the rule 3H, this is a powered vessel unable to deviate from the course she is following because of depth and width of water. Now, as per 8F3, the CBD is still obliged to follow steering and sailing rule. The steering and sailing rule, the 18D says that CBD should navigate with caution, and rule 16 says it should take early and substantial action, which may involve reducing or stopping.